I mean, look, if nothing else, a bitch looks good today. Hello, it's Julesy and I'm back. I'm obliged. Do I really want to be here? Do I really feel like doing this at this moment? I mean, the whole world is on fire. And it's like, is this a saying that I'm gonna run into the ground? Yes, probably, because literally I feel like I'm that like meme with the dog in it, and I'm like, I have a cup of mug in my hand and like the flames are all around me, and it's incredibly difficult to like be motivated, to feel like I have fucks to give. I mean, I was never that person in the first place, but now it just feels extra heavy and weighted. And it's like, wow, is this depression? I mean, I know this feeling. I felt this feeling before, but it still feels different. It feels heavier. It feels like it's not just me. It's not an I. It's not an individual thing. It's like a collective thing. There's very little respite. There's little relief. And especially as someone who works for themselves, having to get up and self-motivate to do work, to be inspired, to be creative, to work out, to cook, to clean, make my bed. I mean, I have been meditating, and that definitely actually, breathe in, breathe out. Yes, it does something. That's something, I don't know what that is yet, but something's happening there and it feels quite good. But everything else just feels a little like, oh wow, another day in the house watching Netflix. I would rather not.
I hate my life and nobody can hear me say it right now.
One day I was in the car for no reason, because I had nowhere to go, because we're trying to stay, you know, healthy. And somehow the car, even in this heat, still feels like the place where I can decompress the best. It's odd, because what I have done in the voided year of 2020 is spent time finishing decorating my home. My home is comforting. My home is decorated. It's done, and it just feels like, wow, still things to put back in place and clean and dust and organize. And somehow my car, which is not any neater than my home, feels like a more comforting place to be. But that's neither here nor there. I decided that I was going to get ahead and be productive while I procrastinated in the car. That we were somehow going to turn this moment of I'm avoiding doing the things I know I need to do because anxiety, into okay, well, I'm avoiding this while low-key doing that. And so I opened up Audible on my phone and said, let me listen to a book that we're planning on reading in the book club. And the book that was coming up was Such a Fun Age. So I push play, saying, you know, you're lying to yourself, because you're gonna go scroll through Instagram while this plays in the background, and you're gonna have to go back and re-listen because you're not actually gonna listen to anything. And then Nicole Lewis's voice came through on my car speakers. And let me tell you, I was taken back to the days of the early 90s in my great grandmother's bedroom, where she said, no, leave it on this channel because there's a black person on the TV. And lo and behold, it was Guiding Light. Or As the World Turns, or All My Children, General Hospital. I mean, depending on the seasons, because, you know, the black people came and went, and my great-grandmother, born in 1904, couldn't tell you of a story arc, plot line, character. No. It just mattered that, you know, melanin was on our TV screen at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and Such a Fun Age brought me back to that moment, because, boy, what a soap opera. It was. And for whatever reason, like, I didn't want to listen to it in the house. It just felt more intimate. It felt more special. It felt more of like a relief and an escape and a getting away when I listened to it in the car. So we went to Costco, we filled up our gas, and we just drove around Charlotte, North Carolina, listening to Nicole Lewis narrate Such a Fun Age. And boy, if you don't understand the joy that I got out of such a mess of a book, please, yes, you need to go use my Audible link and get you a copy of this book, because it's chef's kiss amazing. If you liked Reese Witherspoon as Elena Richardson in Little Fires Everywhere, I mean, not to, you know, I'm not a person that says we have to have the same actress play the same characters all the time, but maybe someone in the same vein as Reese Witherspoon.
I'm getting a little tired of your broken promises.
Playing an Alec Chamberlain. I I can't wait. I am here for it. I am venerably excited. And what I loved most about listening to the audiobook version of Such a Fun Age is that it's not a heavy production. It's not like the voices that Nicole Lewis employs are like distinctly, like, well, they are distinct, but it's not like this grandiose change in like her voice tonage and the way she speaks to communicate that she is narrating a different character. But it was like these small, I love to say small ticks, it's one of my other favorite phrases, you know? There's just this je ne sais quoi in the production of the audiobook that hits different. I'm trying to tell y'all, look, 500, text Julesy, get you a free Audible credit and go ahead and listen to this. But more importantly, what I wanted to talk about, because what really stuck with me in this book, where how in the book club, we have really been reading some, didn't realize how heavy the book was. Sorry, guys. Didn't realize how tragic some of the notes in the book were. Sorry, y'all. But part of reading about the lived experiences of Black women is that like there's a collective struggle, and sometimes the struggle being metaphorically illustrated. Hi, Toni Morrison and Sula. It's just like, wow, how depressing. I mean, homegoing. You know, like the history of colonization and slave trade. Wow. What else did we read? Hood feminism, eloquent rage. It just kind of reminds us of like the collectiveness of what we're dealing with. Women of Brewster Place, the two. I mean, Lord. I just was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm picking my favorite books and I forgot how tragic my favorite books were. And so I realized collectively, like, you know, the whole world's burning. We don't need to keep reading about the world burning in books. So let's pick something a little bit easier. And so I picked Such a Fun Age because it was recommended. This is not my own genius. This is a collective genius of a community. And I appreciated that it still discussed some of the themes that we have been discussing in the book club. It still talks about race and white liberalism and motherhood and class stratification and classism and fetishization by white people of Black folk. You know, there's all these themes without it being like a history book. It's light, it's funny, it's a little messy, it's a soap opera. It's like, ooh girl, Kelly. No, wait. Ooh girl, Tamra. Okay, it's a mess. Yes. But one of the bigger themes that definitely stuck with me was the performative motherhood of the girl boss. And I feel like it's very relevant in 2020 for us to discuss the fallacy of the white woman as the girl boss. Now, actually, this is not race specific, but we're gonna attack it from that point first, because we'll have to come back another day and talk about the scam that is the Black woman empowerment movement. No tea, no shade. Maybe I'll just put that on my Patreon. Okay, so the girl boss. Alec Chamberlain Amira, who is a Black girl from Kensington, Philly, which is like the North Philadelphia area. She went to Temple and she's a babysitter for the Chamberlain family. And Alec Chamberlain is like your quote unquote liberal white woman trying to work for Hillary Clinton in 2015. Oh boy, oh vey. Pantsuit down, uses her child as a prop on stage to say, yes, I'm a girl boss, and hashtag let her speak as my company. Did you get the tea? Wear the tea, rock the tea. Oh, look at my Instagram engagement going up. Yes, that's me nursing my 2-year-old. Throw the 2-year-old back to the assistant when you're all done with the photo shoot. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And Alec Chamberlain, through the lens of Amira, we realize that she is by choice, not the greatest of mothers. She continually, well, a few of the characters, continually use the performance and privilege of the spaces that they exist in to profit from in ways that make Amira, the Black girl, very uncomfortable, and for a Black girl or young woman, comes with a layer of stress and anxiety that Alec and the other main white character in the book never even have to consider because of the privilege of whiteness. In particular to 2020, well, late 2019, there were quite a few articles that came out about the fallacy of the myth of the girl boss. In particular, one article from The Atlantic, I will link all my sources down below, girl. You know, the tea, no shade. We had Away Luggage, Refinery 29, the women's only co-working space, The Wing, and then Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, all these white women CEOs and executives who were called out for employing the same maligning behavior of their white male counterparts against their brown, people of color, and non-binary LGBTQIA plus staff members. And you know, I feel like at some point back in like the height of the girl boss movement, I talked about the book by Nasty Gal CEO, Sophia something, I don't even remember the homegirl last name, but how I didn't like it. I really wasn't here for the girl boss theme, and I'm pretty sure I need to go back and pull up my book list, or maybe I talked about it on Instagram. Wow, I need to scour the internet and find this. Because I remember it saying this girl boss ethos is just like white privilege and ableism and still exploiting cheap labor and still a capitalistic output that does more harm to a collective than it actually empowers a collective, because it really just empowers the individual at the top. And boy, the foresight, I was not wrong. Because in 2020, we've had this bringing people to the helm moment where we are now discussing how problematic the girl boss ethos is and how manipulative it is and how it really just, again, benefits an already privileged class of individuals and does not trickle down to the employees that they hire. The employees, oh man, I just read the other day the article about the Away Luggage CEO, who was already a wealthy white woman when like growing up, okay, Taylor Swift, and her name's not Taylor Swift, it's like K-Stokey or something, and how she was treating her employees and like forcing them to work overtime without paying them overtime and saying, you know, and like, this is a brand that I've purchased from, a brand that I actually liked, and reading they had screenshots of the Slack conversation she was having with her employees, telling them like, how dare you not meet like 100%, and the ways in which, I want to mention so many books that we're reading in the book club. Just girl, come on over to my side, SBG Book Club. It don't matter, girl, boy, you, they, them. Please come on over and join the ride. We have not finished even discussing Such a Fun Age. So for real, really the audio book version is a superior format to absorb, to read this book in. So again, audible.com/Julesy or text Julesy to 500 get your first month free. And let me tell you, this is how much I love the audiobook version. I just hyped my whole thought. We were going to get back to it, but I love the audiobook version so much. I didn't realize that you could send your Audible book to one friend per month. And so I was trying to get my mom on the bandwagon of, you should really read this as an audiobook. So I just shared the link in Audible, and I didn't realize that it was actually going to like allow her to have that credit for that one book that month. And I was like, oh, that's super dope. Like, I'm all about community. I'm all about a collective. So I like the ability to be able to share my audiobooks and get more people into understanding why I'm such a fan of Such a Fun Age as an audiobook. I'm thinking of all these other things that we are also reading in the book club that discuss how we are trained as a society because of capitalism to invest in this idea of constantly needing to work, and how that feeds into a society of domination and this idea that we are going to level ourselves up, not like simply as individuals without consideration of other people, but it's like, I'm gonna level myself up over others, and not just level myself up over, I'm going to dominate other people. I'm going to put myself in a position of power over others, and how collectively harmful that sort of ethos actually is, because it's not a loving ethic. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you gotta come to the book club and get put on, girl. The tea is scalding here. And that really speaks to the problem of the girl boss ethos, is that girl boss just suggests that women, and for the most part it has been white women, getting to the positions of power that men have held without changing the apparatus, without changing the systems that keep the exclusivity in such an elite space, that exploit the labor, that uses people and underpays them, does not give them the proper working benefits, that does not allow them to even be able to afford to live in the city that they have to work in, or how it might cause more harm to a broader ecosystem. We're not considering any of that. We're just simply saying, lean in and put women in positions of power, and that will resolve our issues. And I think we, as a society, might lean on the sexist reason as to why that's not necessarily the case, and not understanding that patriarchy sees no gender. We all participate in this striving towards a society of domination versus a society of a loving ethic. Replicating the same systems that keep people out to allow an individual in doesn't actually change anything. Even if all the individuals before them were white men, and now you get white women and then a handful of people of color that trickle on down the pipeline. But you're not seeing a societal shift. You're not seeing a structural shift. And you're not actually changing the way we even culturally or societally think and do things. There was no shift with Girlboss. It was all a ruse. And it was all a way to say that it's okay and let us not challenge and let us market something. And really, Girlboss was just one big marketing scheme. I mean, like Alec Chamberlain and her Let Her Speak. I don't even want to this is not meant to be a review of the book. I really wanted to talk about the Girlboss thing. But the Girlboss thought came from the fact that in the book, Alec Chamberlain, even I could give this much away about the book, right? Amira babysits Alec's oldest child, Briar, who's 3 years old in the book. And there was an incident that was an emergency. It was late at night. Amira was out with her homegirls, probably somewhere on South Street, having her good little time. And Alec rings sis up and said, hey, can you come get Briar real quick because we're handling an emergency. So it's in the evening. She takes Briar to the local organic grocery store to look at some nuts because Briar is a unique child, right? Amira's actually at the grocery store with her friend Zara, and Briar, the white toddler who she's babysitting. This white woman walks by them while they're having a little dance off to Whitney Houston, says hello, they keep it moving. Then a couple minutes later, comes back with a security guard who then accuses Amira of kidnapping Briar, who she's actually in guardianship of at that moment as her babysitter. And so another person in the grocery store happens to record it. And after this whole incident, Alec Chamberlain decides that Amira, against Amira's own wishes, is going to become her pet project. Amira is going to revolutionize Alec's whole brand and her whole meaning of life, and she's going to sow everything she has into this young black girl from North Philly who was just looking at sis baby, I'm just here because it's $25 an hour. I really don't need nothing else. Please. Simmer down, homie. Through the lens of Amira, we come to understand that Alec is your classic liberal, neoliberal white woman who sees no fault in herself, sees nothing that she has done wrong, and is buoyed by a whole cauldron of homegirls and associates who pat her on her back for her bullshit. There's nobody in her close social circle that's telling her girl, you need to reflect. She's on Instagram, but she's clearly not following the holistic psychologist because she is not doing her shadow work. Let me tell you, she's not interrogating her own motives. And her cauldron of homegirls are constantly girl, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I mean, really, you just gotta, please, get the audiobook, listen to it. But that really eclipsed for me what I really didn't care for about in this girl boss movement, right? These white women who don't have to reflect about their own bad behavior, who can scapegoat their way out of, again, their bad behavior, right? Who will use the real issues of sexism and misogyny to excuse themselves for ever being held accountable. And particularly, there was a thought of Amira when she's talking about what about Alec really rubs her the wrong way with the way she treats her two daughters. So Alec has Briar, her 3-year-old, and then Catherine, the newborn, who she very much so prefers. And Amira, in the stream of consciousness in the book, is saying, it's not that Alec is a bad mother inherently. It's not that she's is a bad mother overall. It's that she has the great capability to be a good mother. She has it in her, and it's clear with the way she treats the newborn. And in some shining moments with Briar, but all those shining moments with Briar have to be performed. There has to be a crowd, an audience of people to see. And it's you can perform motherhood. And I think that is such a sincere privilege of white women, because in the ways that femininity and motherhood and womanhood in America and our capitalistic white supremacist society, the way it has been cultivated to sort of weaponize this white fragility that largely keeps Black and brown women out of, not just out of, but from ever being able to see themselves as part of this image, and therefore keeps them in low paying labor positions. And this is definitely, like, you know, you see this theme occur in the book with Alec Chamberlain as this wealthy, well-to-do white woman, and Amira Tucker, her babysitter. Not to say that Black women, or, you know, Black and Latina and Native American women, it's not that they can't ever say, well, I'm a woman, or I'm feminine, or I'm a great mother, or I'm womanly. It's not that they can't say these things, or that they can't feel those things themselves, but it's the image of that has absolutely been cultivated around a white fragility, around privileges that are largely withheld from the community of us, which is why we have to struggle to achieve it, why there can even be platforms curated to tell us how to be like that in ways that are way more accessible to our white women counterparts. And that is definitely true of how Alec can get away with discarding of her oldest child at the age of 3, and none of her friends call her out on it. Nobody in her world is checking her on the ways in which she doesn't treat her child well. But let a Black woman do that, it would be problematic. Oh, girl. With the explosion of the myth of the girl boss, I think we've definitely had to reckon this year with it, again, of how it's just a performance, and how it doesn't dismantle this hierarchy of domination. It doesn't create a larger playing field that brings in a more diverse community of players. It just replicates. I'm repeating myself. Is this repetitive? I'm so sorry. But just to end on this note, the girl boss movement was a marketing scheme that replicated the same hierarchy of domination that kept privileged, able-bodied, upper-class white women, and maybe your occasional woman of color, but very specific backgrounds here. Let's not play like we don't know what's happening. Thin, white teeth, clear skin, a very specific aesthetic, who were able to achieve success and, you know, sell books talking about lean in and just say no, and take on the same bad behavior, the same manipulative, demeaning, domineering behavior of white men. Girl boss really just allowed them to be celebrated for it without ever having to interrogate their methods, without ever having to hold themselves accountable for the actions that they were taking and the harm they were causing. And I'm very happy for it to combust. If nothing else, if everything's gonna be on fire, the girl boss can be on fire too. All right, I will link down below to all the articles that I have been reading around this. Though I will say, Refinery 29, which is a media outlet, had their moment, right? And Essence Communications had their moment. But yeah, the CEO of Essence isn't a Black woman. So we'll come back. We'll come back and talk about the Black woman empowerment brunch scene. I mean, it's largely the same things you say about this, but I think there's a little bit more, when it's intra-community, it's a little bit more class stratification. There's a little bit more happening there. And we'll come back and talk about this next time. All right. Thanks for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if you agree, you disagree, whatever, girl. Let's have a conversation. I would like to engage with all y'all.